the person that we have here is Jay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Jay, can you tell me your name?
Jay Randolph.
All right, can you tell me your race?
I am white, Caucasian.
Okay, so can you please turn on your camera?
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay.
One of the questions I want to ask you, do you get offended when you see someone dressed as your race during Halloween?
No.
All right. The other question is, what other perception do people have of you when they see you?
With the way our society is currently, the very first perception that usually people get is that I am a Trump supporter. Basically, I mean, racist terms. You would be amazed at the number of white people that come to me simply because of how I look and will express their opinions that they should keep to themselves.
Okay, what kind of opinions do they say when they see you out in public?
I have had people come up and just start talking to me, and they'll say, well, I know you're a Trump supporter simply because of the way I look, and they'll start talking about politics, or they'll start talking about religion, and there's some very derogatory terms that are said by people, very racist terms. Just things that are not acceptable to me. Apparently it's acceptable to them and in their life and in their households, but not to me.
Okay. What do you think about today's racial tension? You touched on that a little bit. And has it changed your view or opinion about other races?
It has not. I grew up in Henderson. I came from a single family home. My father and mother separated, and I lived with my father. My father did not preach, teach, or allow racism in our house, around him or around his children. And the only positive mother and father figures that I had in my life growing up were actually Black. I spent more time in a Black community than I did around whites. I grew up what is currently known as Martin Luther King. When I was growing up, it was Dixon Street. I grew up on Dixon Street a lot. I spent a lot of time at the back courts. I grew up with, my best friends were Black. They weren't, I didn't run with white people in school. I didn't run with white people out of school. Basically everything I did, I associated was with Black people.
Okay. Do you think Henderson, Kentucky is diverse as of the job market, as of the people? Do you think Henderson is diverse compared to other cities in Kentucky or in the United States?
I do not. I don't
And why
think
do
we're
you feel that
diverse
way?
enough. You can look at surrounding communities, Owensboro, even Madisonville, Evansville. They have a more diverse culture than we do, a diverse culture. You can't just have two races or, one ethnicity and expect it to be diverse. I also was in the military. I've been on 6 out of the 7 continents in the world. I've spent a lot of time around different ethnicities, different religions. And, you know, you see when you leave your bubble, you see life totally different. So Henderson, a lot of people might say, oh yeah, you know, we have a nice mix. No, we don't. We don't. You know, yes, we have Black community. Yes, we have white community. We have a Hispanic community, but you don't have an Asian community. You don't have an Indian community. You know, Owensboro, and I know this, anybody that knows my history from last year is going to sound, well, I can't believe he's saying that. Owensboro has a Muslim community. Bowling Green has a Muslim community. You know, we don't have, Henderson is Henderson. We're not progressing. We're not gaining ground if you compare us to our neighboring counties.
Okay. And I know we're going to get into a little bit more about you here in a minute, but share something you like to change in today's society.
Stereotypes. I get tired of stereotypes. You know, you look at people, and again, you have to understand, this is coming from my point of view. This is a white man's point of view. But you look at people, and you know, you have that stereotype of, well, they're poor white trash, or well, they live in the ghetto, or you know, they're Hispanic, so you know, they do menial tasks. And I mean, the stereotypes what kills me is this: people, you have to know a person, and you have to get to know a person before you should judge them and come out with your own, you know, stereotype of what they are or who they are.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think the white beard, people think you're a Trump supporter because the way you look, or you think it's just because you're a white male and they think you are a Trump supporter?
I think the beard, the age, the fact that I'm a white male, the voice, the gruff attitude. Yeah, I do. I think that is a huge stereotype of, you know, well, look at him. You know, he supports Trump. And that stereotype doesn't, like I said, it doesn't just come from someone of a different race. It comes from white people too. I mean, they look at me and they're like, yeah, I know you are.
Mm-hmm. I know. And the reason why I asked that, because, you know, our how we entwined was you was at the Henderson County Library and you was there, and I can't remember, did you have a hat on that day? Was
I
it?
did. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a hat on your day, and you was sitting in the back of the room, and I had left the library, and I came back, and I was watching everything, and they said, was Jay Randolph here? And he goes, I'm here. And so I heard his voice. And so when you came up, my perception of you was, oh, wow, he's a Trump supporter. He's, you know, he is for, you know, the library director of keeping his job. But when you open your mouth and talked about your story, your background, everything, that changed my perception of you. And I was like, wow, I'm stereotyping myself. So can you go in detail of what happened at the library, what you said, and what has been going on with you in the past year?
Well, if people are not aware, Caleb May, the library director, made some really disturbing and derogatory comments about Black people in general with abortion, talking about murdering each other, talking about gay and lesbian. And then, you know, as I like to teach my kids, you have freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. You can say what you want to say. What you don't have is freedom of accountability. And unfortunately for Mr. May, he thought he had freedom of accountability, or else he thought that the comments he made were not going to reach the general public. And again, growing up in a Black community, I have a lot of respect from my peers, a lot of respect from their children because they saw me growing up and I watched them growing up. So I had a couple of them reach out to me and said, hey, would you mind coming speaking? And I said, no, I wouldn't. It doesn't bother me. And actually that day I had not planned to come speak because I had just gotten home from doing some work and I was tired. And there was a lady, and I was watching, the live event of them speaking down at the library. And there was a lady on there who really, she was great. She really was. She was in favor of him keeping his job and of him continuing to do what he's doing. And she had great arguments. I'm not going to say she didn't. They were all valid points. She talked about how he had brought in certain reading material and how he had interacted with certain things, and very valid. They were really great points to listen to. But she failed to mention his attitude and his comments. The comments that he made, you have Black employees, you have gay and lesbian employees. So you're going to make these comments and still expect those people to work with you. And then that's not counting the community. You have people that come into the library that are Black, that are gay and lesbian, that are biracial, so how do you think they're going to take it? Did you ever stop to take their feelings into account? And he didn't. He just, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is what's going to happen. So the lady was speaking that day, and I was really good with everything she said until she got to her last comment. And she said, and Michelle, you can correct me, but she said something basically to the fact that when I walk out of here, I fear for my life.
Yes, she did. She did say that. She did.
And that one comment pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie to you. It irked me so much that I changed my shirt. I jumped in my van. I sent the two ladies that had asked me to come, I sent them a message and said, I'm on my way. They had already printed off a statement that I had made on Facebook. And I said, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute. Do whatever you have to do to keep them going until I get there. So anyway, I get there, and then that's kind of where you came in about, they started reading my statement, and I said, oh, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then I got to go up there and speak. Most people, I'm not sure about the people that's on this call. Most people know who I am. Most people know my daughter, Chloe Randolph. Last year, March 23rd, 2019, Chloe was murdered by her husband. Her husband is not a U.S. citizen. He is actually Somalian. He is Muslim, and he practices Islam. They, at that point in time, had a 9-month-old son that after he murdered my daughter, he took my grandson, and he was apprehended with another gentleman in West Memphis, Arkansas. We now have custody of my grandson. My daughter was 20 years old. She had only dated 3 guys, and she married one of them, and all 3 of the guys were Black. Of course, regardless of anybody wants to admit it or not, if you are of a race and you date someone of a different race, you're going to take flack from people, okay? People of your same race, people of a different race. So if you're white and you're dating somebody Black, you're going to take slack from white people. You're going to take slack from Black people too. And the same thing is to be said for any race or any ethnicity. I can tell you one of the things that I learned from being in the military, and traveling and dealing with people in the form that I did, the only time that I've ever seen that it has been a serious issue where you just don't do it, it's taboo, is when you go into a foreign country and you have people that are of different, what they call sects, not sex, sect. You know, when I was in Iraq, one of the biggest problems that we could not understand, you had, everybody was Muslim, everybody practiced Islam. They were killing each other because one of them was Sunni and one of them was Shiites. That's it. That's the only reason they were killing each other. So, you know, you have that in the United States, okay, not to that depth, but there is still bias, there is still racism. I never once did not support anything my daughter did. My father supported me when other people were telling him, Jay is this, Jay is that, I can't believe you do, da 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 da. My father supported me, you know, and he would tell him, you know what, that's my son, it's not yours, you don't have to worry about it. I live with him, you don't. And I would say that same stuff about my daughter. Because yes, again, well, I can't believe you just let her date black people. And this, you know what, first off, it's not my choice, it's hers. Second off, I can choose to be a father or I can choose to be an asshole. And I choose to be a father. Third off, if I had of in any form whatsoever tried to condemn what she was doing, I'd have been the biggest hypocrite that there was, because I did it growing up, you know. And then she got married, and I had ignorant people. Well, you know, I'm sure you don't feel good about that. And I'm just like, you know, what are you talking about? Well, you know, you fought against Muslims. And I said, you know what? I did. I fought against them. I'm not going to lie. But I also fought with them. You know, not everybody's bad. And I tell people, anybody that wants to listen, if I was to be judgmental and I was to be a racist, I would hate white people more than I do anybody. And that's simply because white people have done me wrong more than anybody else. Truthfully. You know, you got what's going on? My dog's barking.
Yeah, it's my desk phone. Somebody's calling me. Sorry.
So, you know, you can't. I could have stood back and been a hate-mongering racist POS and say, oh, an immigrant killed my daughter and Muslim. And let me tell you what, he did it in a brutal form. Anybody can look it up online and you can see, it will tell you specifically what he did, how he did it, what he, you know. But I can't do that. I just can't. What am I teaching my children if I do that? What am I teaching my grandson if I do that? What am I teaching the people around me if I do that? I'm not teaching them anything. I'm not teaching them tolerance. I'm not teaching them respect, empathy, compassion. I'm teaching them hate. We got enough hate in this world. You know, we need people that are willing to put aside the hate to come together. And, you know, I do, in the past 3 years, we have regressed to where, and I'm not sure how the other participants are in this speak, but you can search the 1968 Democratic Party or Democratic DNC in Chicago, see what happened. Watts riots, see what happened. My generation, you know what? We dropped the ball with Rodney King. You can't, you just can't be hateful. You can't grow up being hateful. We're taught hate. We're not born with it. We're taught racism. We're not born with it. And we will never be able to come together as a country and be in support of each other until we stop.
Okay. So now I'm going to open it up to the people who are here. You can raise your hand and I will acknowledge you so you can ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. This is an open forum.
Ask me anything.
Are we asking questions about what he just said?
Or anything. Edwin, do you have a question for Jay?
Not necessarily, but I can talk about my opinion, or if you want me to do that or do anything of that nature.
Fine. This is an open forum, so go ahead.
Well, I don't do any of my camera on or no?
No, just go ahead and talk.
I definitely have. I was raised mostly in Henderson, but I came here to this country when I was 5 years old from El Salvador. And when I flew here, I was terrified to be here because I didn't know the language, and the language barrier was a big deal for me since I was in kindergarten when I started in Stringtown Elementary in Evansville. And then I did 2 years there, went to ESL, got bullied for not knowing English, and then I went to Holy Name. And don't get me wrong, it's a great school. It's just definitely my first experience with racism, not necessarily directly, but people would always question Google my father's business and would assume that I'm like really rich because my father's revenue is so high. But again, revenue is not income. And some people even tried to say that my father was selling drugs to afford what we had because he was Latino. And that was never the case. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But also, even though there's white people that can be racist, there's definitely a colorism issue and racist issue in Latino America and across every race. And unfortunately, my father has an opinion about Black people that I do not completely agree with at all. And it's just like so insane to me because he's the reason why I have African ancestry in me, and because I'm Afro-Latino. So it's really funny because he will go to his grave denying it. And my mother, who is like, I guess you could say Indian Caucasian, she's Latina too, just in case anybody didn't know that Latinos aren't a race, we're an ethnicity since we have different races in us. She wants my sister and I to get a DNA test, to show my father our African ancestry on paper, just so he can just basically stop talking about it and just shut him down. But I definitely moved and left Henderson when I graduated at 18, when I graduated from Memorial, which was another place where we had racism, where they said the N-word, carefree, and just didn't care. And I was just so shocked because I grew up with more Black friends than anything, from North and South, from Henderson County High School. And I appreciated how much in common we had with family, with humor, with a sense of basically being honest and just being, unapologetically, that was such a struggle to say ourselves. So I definitely went to Louisville and got away from that and had culture shock at Brown being so many different ethnicities, races, and everything. I mean, U of L was such an experience, and even the city itself, because there's a community for everybody. I mean, the Muslim community is huge. There's a Bosnian community. There's, Cubans that have, and Latinos have their own community by country. And there's a lot of different Mediterranean, restaurants and all different types of restaurants across the country. And I just was so overwhelmed. I learned Arabic, I learned Urdu, a little bit of Chinese. It just was so insane to me that this place was so diverse. And obviously, with Louisville right now, some people say, oh, I don't want to go there. It's not my favorite city. But I actually support what's going on in Louisville because justice needs to be served. And I'm very vocal about the Black Lives Matter movement. I definitely 100% support it. And I just like feel that this Halloween, I'm very nervous to go to the parties I'm going to because I don't want to see anything offensive because I'm not the person that just stands by and watches this. I'm the kind of person that goes up to and is like, what's this or what's going on? You know, I'm very confrontational sometimes when I think it's necessary. So I am very eager that Louisville is doing what they're doing. I obviously hate that there's like a lot of negativity surrounding it, but one thing that I do actually relate to with Jay is that there was this friend of mine, and she's not really my friend after this, who posted on Facebook at how scared she was. She's a white female, about her white, probably straight male son growing up in Louisville, and how she's scared for his life. And my friend Pacific Uwayezu, she is from Rwanda, and her parents got murdered in the genocide. And she got raised by her grandmother. She's very vocal about obviously the Black Lives Matter movement. She and my friend Taylor got into it. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say names, but they got into it, and I just completely agreed with her because it was just ridiculous that she's talking about her son, who's not even like 2 or 3, growing up in Louisville, and I'm scared for my children because just of the color of their skin, and she's worried about her child, about some riots and looting, and it's literally in one area, and it's not as bad as the news plays it out to be because I lived there up until a month ago. So it's just a lot going on in this world, and I think that Dr. Chappelle did a great job at making sure we know like about this. My race is not a costume, it's my culture, because people need to respect, especially with Louisville scandal where the president and his colleagues dressed as Mexicans one year. I'm pretty sure you guys might have heard about that, and that was super offensive to the Latino community. And I was part of the Latino community at the college, and I was involved with everything. And so we actually had a meeting about that because he publicly apologized to all of us, especially Latinos, and emailed all the Latino students about it. And it's just like things like that, I think, just make sense. It's not, good to do that. My friend dressed as an Indian 3 or 4 years ago, and I just was like, "Why are you dressed like that?" He's like, "Well, my abs look good. I look good like this." And I was like, "Well, that's great, but that's not your culture, nor is it your place to put that on and assume that feathers and like a little Speedo covered in cloth is appropriate for you to wear. It's offensive, and you're a white male, and so you should probably realize that your ancestors murdered these people. So let's not do that." But I like Jay's point of view because I would have probably also thought he was a Trump supporter. But look at me using stereotypes, so that's not something that I'm proud of sometimes but I'm just scared. It's like a fear I think instilled in me is because moving back home, I've, it's insane how it's like still 5 or 10 years behind when I go back to Henderson coming from Louisville. And Louisville's not as progressive as, let's say, LA or Portland or Atlanta, but it definitely is a really progressive city. However, it is still Kentucky. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Jay, for your input.
Thank you,
Well,
Edwin. And Edwin, go ahead and before you go ahead, Edwin, go ahead and turn your camera on just so we can see what you look like.
can I respond to a couple
Yes.
things that he said? Okay.
Yes, you can. Can you see Edwin?
I can see. All right. One thing that you said that bothers me, it was the fact of getting a DNA test. Your mother wants you to get one so she can give it to your father. I know that's your father. I know you love him. And I know you're not happy with the way things are. If you were my child, this is exactly what I would tell you. If you have to get a DNA test to prove that you have this DNA in your chromosomes or whatever, is it really worth it? Because it's not going to change anything. We like to think that we can change people's minds. We like to think that if we use reason and logic, that a person's going to think differently. Sometimes, yes. Majority of the time, no, it's not going to change. So we either have to accept that and be able to move on past it, or we dwell on it and it eats us up. So, that's just my opinion on that thing. And then as far as the protesting and, the Black Lives Movement and all that, look, I support it. I support it as long as there's no rioting, as long as there's no looting, as long as there's no one getting hurt. I support it. Here's the problem that I would tell you. Unfortunately, especially with the way things are in society right now, you have to be extremely cautious of everything you do. And it's not because of the police. It's not because of you going out and business owners doing whatever. It's because, just like the 13 people that just got arrested, it's because there are these psychos like those guys that are out here in society. And that is why you have protests turning out the way they do. It's not the peaceful protesters. It's the ones that come to a protest looking for that opportunity to capitalize on that situation, and they don't give a shit about you or anybody else in that protest. So you have to be very, very careful.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Evan. Anybody else have something they want to add or something to share? Joe or Angie?
Just a quick comment about all these things that are going on, and Michelle offering this opportunity for Jay to come and talk. I think all these things are helpful, because it heightens our awareness. We all stereotype, even though we don't even stop and think about it. We do. It's just kind of an automatic thing that happens, and I think just raising our awareness is going to hopefully make a change. And thank you, Jay, for presenting today.
Yes, ma'am.
Me and Jay have had several conversations about everything that's going on, and we can laugh about it now because I actually reached out to Jay, and then he said, "I know what you're going to say before you even have said it, and I'll apologize." And so I told him, I says, me as a Black woman raising two kids on my own. My daughter, she's biracial, so she gets to. I can't say really the best of both worlds, but the flack as, because she is biracial, my family does make little comments, and then, she don't really have a lot of Black friends because of, how they treat her and what they say about her hair. They said she wears weave. No, that's her natural hair. And, and with her white friends, she feels more comfortable. Yeah, I'm just being honest. And, and with her white friends, she feels more comfortable because the one she has. But she do let them know that what they say is not okay. She made a statement on Twitter about how, being biracial, she's actually can see both sides of it. And she did say the best of both worlds, and she had a good explanation of that. And so you're right, Jay, I stereotype. Angie said, we all stereotyped, and it's sad that, people will dress like Jay. I'll be just saying it, with the beard and the Trump hat and, the overalls for Halloween as a Trump supporter, and then like, well, that's not who Jay is. No. Jay is a white male that lost his daughter last year, who opened up a organization a couple of weeks ago. Jay is much more than what he looks on the outside. So my whole purpose. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so my whole purpose to have this conversation is that we need to get to know people, and we need to know what their heart is and know where they stand, and quit judging people by the outside. And I'm still open up the floor for any conversations or anything. I wish more people will come to this event, because I feel like this is important. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. They just act like it don't exist. Racism doesn't. It does. I fear every day that somebody's going to come up to me and say something to me because of my skin. The hatred. And me and Angie had a conversation about that last week. How I feel like when I walk in public, people are going to say she's the angry Black woman. She support Black Lives Matter, which is a racial organization. And that perception to me just runs right through me. And so we need to have a place where we can hold these dialogues and these open conversations, to have these conversations, to let know where people stand, because there might be more good in this world than people is led on to be.
There is, and I'll tell you that, Michelle, me and you have talked about this. One of the things that upsets me about the younger white kids, I love the support. I love the support they give BLM. I love the support that they give different ethnicities, different races. That's awesome. But they need to understand that when you alienate someone like me, that you're losing a massive amount of support simply because of the people that I know, the people that I come in contact with, the people that I deal with. We, if any of you guys know about legislation or law or anything like that, we had Senate Bill 66. The governor signed it in April, and that pertained to my daughter. You could talk to any politician, you could talk to any attorney, any law enforcement, and they will tell you that that law got passed quicker than any legislation they ever know of. That law was that bill was presented in January and got passed in April for this legislation. And that's with COVID and everything, the government being shut down, the legislators being sent home. So, I have a tendency, and Michelle knows me on Facebook, and I'm very outspoken. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care. I don't care if I offend you. I don't care if I upset you. But I'm seriously, I'm very empathetic. I try to be understanding. I try to be respectful. I have actually blocked more 20-something white people than I have anybody else on my Facebook, for the simple fact that I try to explain to them that what they're doing is awesome, but it really, you asked me about if people dressing up as whatever offends me. No, to me, it doesn't offend me, okay? But I'm also 50 years old. I come from a different generation. So I do get offended when I hear a white person say, oh, well, I understand what Black people are dealing with, or I understand what Hispanic people are dealing with, or I understand what HB. No, you don't, because you're white. And then I also, look, it's vice versa. It's not just white people. I get upset when a Black person says, well, I understand what white people. No, you don't, because you're Black. You don't understand what another race deals with. You have a perception in your mind what they deal with, but no, you don't understand. And when you try to present that image, you're discrediting that race and yourself. You can be sympathetic, but no, you don't have a clue. I have a mixed grandson, biracial grandson. He is 2 years old. He is going to grow up in an environment in a white house. And one of the things, if Michelle remembers, one of the things I said when I was speaking to him at the library that day was that I never once had to worry about telling my children, don't do this, or don't do this if you get pulled over, or if you're in a situation I never once had to worry about telling my children that. I will not only have to have that conversation with my grandson, I will also have to have numerous conversations with my grandson explaining how his mother died, his father did it, how she was white, his father was black, how I was attacked verbally online by neo-Nazi groups afterwards. You know, they took my daughter's newspaper article and they posted it and they said so many racist things and this and that. You know, they threatened to come kill me. And I just told them, come on. You know, I'm not going to hide. I am who I am. But, you know, again, you can be sympathetic. You can try to rationalize what a different race or a different ethnicity deals with. But when you start to project that you understand, you don't. Stop saying that you do, because you don't. If we get down to, well, you know, it's what you say or it's how you say it, you're saying some of the worst things you could ever say when you tell a different race or a different ethnicity, I understand how you feel. No, you don't. You never will. So stop.
I agree with you, Jay, because I go on walks with my neighbor, and it somehow got brought up about like everything going on with, you know, the racism and police brutality. And she's Caucasian, and she has a mixed daughter basically, but she's Caucasian. Her husband is Filipino, and he's half Filipino.
Yeah.
So she was talking to me. She was like, well, I mean, I just think everybody, you know, gets judged, or like people don't like me because I'm white. And so I think it's just not a big deal. Like slavery was so long ago, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like in the middle of a walk with her and her like 1-year-old daughter right there. And I was just like, Lord Jesus, help me. Just like, don't. Like, let me just, please, Jesus, tell me what to, like, just hold my tongue. You know, I took my sertraline today. And I was like, oh, yeah. But it was the beginning of the walk, so I had to just like let it go and not say anything. And then I told her the next day, I was like, you can't really say that to me, especially because I'm not even like, there's white passing Latinos. I'm not a white passing Latino. So it's even worse for me because of the color of my skin. And you'll never feel like what I feel having friends who are illegal, and with the election of Donald Trump, then I felt the most racism ever in my whole life. And my friends were fearful that they would get deported, even though they're on DACA, and that's trying to get, you know, he's trying to get that away from people. And it's just like a whole plethora of things. The immigration system I studied since I was in 8th grade, and I've written papers in college. And I was just like really, really, really praying to the Lord Jesus Christ for me to just be quiet and not say something that I'm going to regret, because I hate when people say like they've experienced a minor inconvenience for being white. And I'm like, that doesn't even fathom me as a reason for you to even say that out of your mouth. So I definitely agree with that.
Well, now, and I'm going to tell you one of the things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with white privilege. I don't. Okay. What I do agree with is wealthy privilege. The reason I say I don't agree with white privilege is because of how I grew up. I didn't have anything handed to me. Nothing was there waiting for me. I mean, believe me, I've been dirt poor rolling pennies for gas. I've been without a job. I've been without food. I've had no privilege in my life. Okay. The only privilege I had was when I joined the military and I got to experience the world and other people in the world, because that opened my eyes to all the other people that are on this planet and how they look at you and how you look at them. You know, so that I don't agree with. And I will tell you that. I'll tell anybody that. But like even one of the things like you're referencing, I have a cousin. Her dad is my cousin, my second cousin. And she's white. her mother divorced my cousin, married a black gentleman. They had 3 kids. So she has 3 sisters that are biracial. She also married an Iranian. And she is one of them that I blocked her. I mean, I just had to get her off my Facebook because I just couldn't deal with everything she was posting. Talking about she completely understands because she has sisters that are biracial and she doesn't understand. She'll never understand. She understands what they tell her, but she doesn't understand what they deal with daily. Just like they don't understand what she deals with daily. That's where I get upset when a person says, oh, well, you know, I understand or I sympathize. Or you can say sympathize because that means that you have compassion and caring. But when you put yourself in that position, someone of a different race or a different ethnicity, to say that, oh, I completely understand what you're going through. No, you don't. That would be like one of you guys telling me, well, you know, I understand exactly what it's like for your daughter to be brutally murdered. Okay, so when did your daughter get brutally murdered? Oh, well, she didn't. Then don't tell me you understand because you don't. You can sympathize with me all you want to. Just don't, you know, don't treat me like I'm stupid and tell me, oh, well, I understand.
Michelle, I will say this one thing because I know the Latino students wanted me to make this a point for my race is not a culture, my race is not a costume, is the fact that it's been a trend, I think, especially with Zillennials. And Zillennials, in case you guys didn't know, are Generation Z and Millennials that are right at the cutoff of Generation Z and Millennial. As I'm a Zillennial considered. A lot of people my age feel like it's appropriate to do a skull, but not just a skull, but do a skull based on Mexican culture around the November 2nd, I believe it is, the Day of the Dead. So the Day of the Dead, in case people do not know, is a celebration in Mexico specifically. I think across Latino America, we celebrate it, but not to the extent of what Mexican culture does. They really, really celebrate it and do rituals, and it's very sacred to them, and it's very important for them to do to honor their ancestors and the people who have passed in their family. If you guys have seen Coco, it's pretty much spot on about what happens, except obviously no one really, you don't see ghosts and you don't turn into one, whatever. But people of Mexican culture really made it a point to say that it's disrespectful for people to wear skulls and act like, you know, they're from whatever. If you dress like, you know, Miguel from Coco, that's fine. He's a character on a Disney movie. Like, that's not the point. But if you purposely just, oh, I'm going to be lazy and do I think it's called a sugar skull, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, it's offensive because they do that for their ancestors, and it's a beautiful parade and celebration for Mexican culture. And it's to honor their ancestors where they go to their graves and offer food and whatever drinks or anything like that, traditional foods for them. So a lot of Mexican people do not like that. Just like obviously the poncho and the sombrero is obviously not okay either. The sugar skull or candy skull, color skull, whatever it's called, is not appropriate. If you want to be a skull, be a skeleton, you know, that's fine. But don't purposely wear like flowers and like make it like as if you're impersonating a person from Mexican culture, because that's really not. It's religious, it's important, it's sacred, it's ritual. So I wanted to just say that real quick, Michelle, since some Mexican people that I've spoken to and even Latino people find it a little bit offensive and ignorant for people to just assume they can dress like that for Halloween.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We have a few more minutes. So does anybody else want to ask Jay a question? Joe, I know Dr. Lewis just popped on. Does anybody want to ask any questions before we wrap this up?
Ask away, please, while you got me.
No questions here. I just really enjoy the conversations and glad to get to be a part of it and listen. I think that's where I learn the best, is just listening to people talk about their experiences and how they face different situations. So thank you both thank you everyone for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Dr. Lewis, you got anything you would like to say?
Well, I am so sorry that I missed most of the presentation, Michael. I would have loved to have hear everything you had said from the beginning. So thank you so much. I do not have any questions at this point, but Michelle does have this recorded, so I'll be able to watch this and I'll get with her if I do have any additional questions.
Well, Dr. Lewis, since you just hopped on the call, this is a trivia question. Do you think that Mr. Randolph is a Trump supporter or not?
Well, I would have to say either way, but I'm just going to say no.
The answer is correct. And you can watch the recording later and you'll see where that came from, okay? So
Awesome.
Although, now I will tell y'all, I did send Michelle a text before all of this earlier this morning, and I said, so which background should I use? Should I use the Confederate flag, the neo-Nazi symbol, swastika, white supremacy? You know, which one? Let me know. So, look, man, I love to have fun. I do. I love to have fun. I do. Not that I would do that, and I would probably, you know, cuss anybody out that did. Well, not probably. I would cuss you out if you had that. But no, I mean, it's all about fun. You got to enjoy life, you know, especially with as turbulent as the times are right now in this country. Enjoy life. You know, I will give y'all a piece of advice that I tell all my children. You always hear, well, you know, you're guaranteed taxes and death. No, you're not. The one thing in life that you're guaranteed is death, period. That's the only thing in life that you're guaranteed. From the first breath you take, you are working towards your last. Okay? So it's what you do in between those two breaths that count. You can't always be serious. You can't always be uptight. You can't always be stressed. You have to have fun. You have to be able to joke. You have to be able to laugh. There's a time to play and a time not to play. You have to know the difference between those two times. You know, you can't, I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than enjoy your life. Enjoy it. It's yours. It's the only one you're ever going to have. Enjoy it.
thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to wrap this up. Stay tuned for more. My race is not a costume. I have 2 more events scheduled this month. I just want to thank Jay for taking this time to engage in this good conversation about my race is not a costume. And I'm hoping to see you guys in my next event. So that's all I have to say. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank y'all.
you.
Thank all of y'all.
you.
Bye, Jay.
Bye-bye.